Mrs. J.D. Mowlin, and I think this is the most ridiculous thing that has ever happened.
This video is from early 1960s Albany, Georgia. And since we've been speaking about Atlanta in recent commentaries, it made sense to include this in there. Now, what was so ridiculous to her was the Civil Rights Bill. I don't think it had been passed at this time, but it proposed a desegregation of public places. So no more whites-only jobs, parks, restaurants, and so forth. So to her, this was the most ridiculous thing she had ever heard.
The Negroes are just as free as we are. They have the same opportunity to work and to build their part of the town up just the same as we have.
She's saying, stay over there. Use your money and build your side of the town. It's getting wild today. Here we go.
I just don't understand it and don't approve of it. I'm going to stand up for my rights.
What rights? She's talking about the right to associate and to sell to whoever she wants to. Many of the whites looked at desegregation as an infringement upon the rights of the white race. They understood this to be a decline in hierarchy, status, and their freedom.
Thank you very much. Jim Knight with WALB Television News. We're soliciting the views of Albany people on the Civil Rights Bill. Would you like to give us your views?
Well, I think if they remain peaceful, it would be a lot better than perhaps the violence that would be concerned. Well, of course, being a Southerner, I'm not for it at all.
Uh-oh.
I see.
And I just don't know how it's going to turn out. I hope we don't have any trouble.
We're soliciting opinions on the Civil Rights Bill. Would you like to give us yours?
I'm sorry, but I don't think it's the time right now. I think they have equal rights, though.
Thank you very much. Would you like to express your views?
No, I don't think so.
How about you?
Nope.
What I'd have to say wouldn't be fit to go on air.
And that's why that couple prior to him didn't provide their views. What they really wanted to say wouldn't have been appropriate because it would have been some wild stuff. That bill threatened the way things had been for centuries prior. So, of course, a lot of them wanted to say some really wild things, right? They're people.
Thank you very much.
I don't like it. I think they're just trying to put something on us that we don't want.
I see.
We ought to have a national election on it rather than just letting 9 men tell us what we got to do.
And how about you?
I feel the same.
All of this is going into the decline of white supremacy. All of these bills, all these laws that were passed, they were all weakening the ability of the supremacy entity to reign in the U.S.
Fine, thank you very much.
I sure don't like it, that's for sure.
I see. Do you feel this will have any effect on your life directly?
I imagine it will.
Thank you very
I'm
much.
afraid we might have niggers to live next door to us.
You see how people were at least honest and upfront about things back then? We're looking at a transitioning period right here of people becoming scared to be truthful in public. Around this time is when you get the trend of open honesty in public starting to decline. And then you get today where many people are terrified to have open conversations about race because of how sensitive the country is. But I always appreciate these older videos because they display a type of authenticity in people that is very difficult to find today on these topics, right? Now from here, let's go into the next video, which is actually based in Atlanta. Here we go.
This is a residential street in southwest Atlanta.
Now they started off the video with the brown-skinned boy flying down the street with that shopping cart, which automatically signals what to the people? That the neighborhood is about to go down. Let's take a look at this again. Watch him flying down the street and think about what people saw when they saw this video.
This is a residential street in southwest Atlanta. Not long ago, all the persons who lived here were white. But recently, a few Negro families moved in, and a scene too familiar in other areas of Atlanta was repeated. The white residents started moving out. For sale signs went up. The street became what is known as transitional. that stage when Negroes are moving in and white people are leaving. Soon this street may be resegregated, all Negro. The Atlanta Planning Department has warned that if this trend continues, it's just a matter of time until Atlanta will become an island of Negroes surrounded by a sea of white suburbanites. The Planning Department suggests as one solution an open housing law for the 5-county metropolitan area, or preferably for the entire state of Georgia. Open housing legislation would enable Negroes to buy houses in sections of Atlanta where they are turned away now simply because they are Negroes. But open housing legislation is not likely to be passed by conservative county governments, the General Assembly, or even Atlanta's Board of Aldermen. Another solution would be to change the attitude of persons in a transitional area like southwest Atlanta.
Which was asking a whole lot from most whites at the time. And I'm willing to bet that most of the whites promoting these ideas were not the people who live in transitional neighborhoods.
Southwest Atlantans for Progress, known as SWAP, was organized for this purpose. At SWAP meetings, both races are able to discuss openly any suspicions or mistrust they have toward one another. Tom Oxnard, the editor of Southwest Atlanta's Weekly Star, is an active member of SWAP. He was asked if the overall problem could be boiled down to white residents not wanting to live next to Negroes.
Well, this is true, but then and again, it's not true.
Now, can any of the good people on the planet tell me why he's smirking right here? Let's look at this again.
Well, this is true, but then and again, it's not true. There are a certain number of white residents who don't mind living next to a Negro.
A certain number means a very small minority of them at the time. And he says that they don't mind. That's not to say that they looked forward to it, right? Now, obviously, today there are many more people who identify as whites who are open to this because the times have changed.
It's true that it may take 100 years for this problem to eventually iron itself out in the United States, but those of us who have been fighting in Southwest Atlanta now for, well, I've been here 2 years, and there are many who've been here longer than me, feel that we've got to make the effort to try to learn to live with people who are different from ourselves. That if we don't, I mean, this is going against the whole grain of the American dream. Everybody deserves a decent house and a decent education, a decent income, and just because the Negroes are now coming up on the ladder, there's no reason why we should run every time one moves next door.
Many of them could have beaten Usain Bolt based on how fast they rushed out of the area, right? This stuff is wild.
Are people staying?
That's a difficult question to answer also. In the area in Southwest Atlanta, north of Sewell Road, there's been an almost complete flip-flop from white to Negro in the past year and a half. We have high hopes that the area between Sewell Road and Cascade Road, which has now got about 40% Negro population, will continue in somewhat that ratio of white to Negro. I think there are a large number of white people who would stay if conditions were such that they were made possible that they could stay. But there are so many pressures in a transition neighborhood, it's just hard to realize unless you live there. You not only get pressures from the real estate people, you get pressures from your contemporaries who live in other parts of town, who tend to say, well, there must be something wrong, why don't you leave the neighborhood? And you say, well, why should I leave the neighborhood? I like it here.
We talked about this before. Whites who had friends from different areas of town were certainly going to question a person's decision-making ability if they actively chose to remain in a Negro neighborhood. That's the pressure he's pointing to here. Humans are herd animals with an internal drive to fit into some group. And the opinion of that group does have great influences on how the people within it make choices. And whites had strong opinions on this matter, so it created heavy pressure points to conform.
So the tremendous pressures are pressures on the Negro families moving in. And it may be too early in the history of this country for there to be a good workable interracial neighborhood, but as I say, those of us in SWAP are committed to try, and that's what we've done so far. We're still trying.
What has the city done?
The city has done virtually nothing. The city is sort of a, you don't know what to talk about when you talk about the city. Let's say that Mayor Ivan Allen has been sympathetic to the aims of SWAP, but he's not done anything specific to help us. I think he feels that, as many people do, that there's no hope in even trying to establish an interracial neighborhood. So why bother?
And he was right. Because racial identities were created to impose hierarchy. White at the top and black at the bottom. So there's always going to be some lingering tension based on the history and the purpose of creating racial categories to begin with. So it's pointless in any real meaningful way. That's why America has to become a post-racial society and stop identifying with racial labels altogether and create communities based on shared culture and values. That's the only real solution to any of these issues, because everything else is just patchwork. And the mayor understood that.
But there's some things the city could have done, like banning for sale signs on residential property, which would have eased some of the psychological pressure that people in the neighborhoods feel. But the city backed off on this.
SWAP is now battling the proposed construction of public housing units on Sewell Road near the Perimeter Highway. Members told the Aldermanic Zoning Committee the housing would put a strain on public facilities like schools. And SWAP fears that public housing will bring a large number of Negroes into an area that's trying to achieve a racial balance. The Zoning Committee did vote to build the units in southwest Atlanta, but the proposal still must clear the full Board of Aldermen. Southwest Atlanta has become sort of a battleground where SWAP fights to prove that residents of a community can achieve a lasting racial balance in their own neighborhood. The odds are against them, but they're still fighting.
So that video was from 1967. Now this next clip is from 1973, and the flight was still very much alive in Atlanta. Whites taking the highways and byways to get out of the city away from blacks. Pay attention.
Well, I hate to leave, really, but I feel like that I'm out of place, living in this community.
Now, I suspect that she was one of the last whites to sell, and now she realizes that she was left behind. Because some whites did try to stay and hold out for as long as possible, but eventually they met a breaking point where eventually most of them decided to get up out of there.
Do you feel that there is any way to stop the white people from leaving transitional neighborhoods and going to the suburbs?
Well, no.
Heck no. There was no way to stop them, right? She spoke the truth here. Heck no. And you got to appreciate the honesty, because as time went on, this type of authenticity was forced to go underground in America.
I don't think so.
A lot of people who are trying to stop the so-called white exodus to the suburbs say that their biggest problem is changing the attitudes of the people. Do you feel that your attitude could be changed to make you want to stay here and live among blacks?
Well, I don't know. I mean...
That was rough, man. That's a rough one. And you can see her expression the way she showed it. The reporter is asking some very heavy questions. Now let's take a look at this again.
Do you feel that your attitude could be changed to make you want to stay here and live among blacks?
Well...
This stuff is wild, man. She's trying. But it's too wild out here.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not prejudiced.
You hear that? That's the innocence entity making its debut. This is in 1973, where the times were changing even more. In the early 1900s and prior, almost no whites ever had to preface their dislike by saying that they weren't prejudiced. They could simply say that they don't like Negroes and don't want to live around them, point blank. And so you're seeing right here little subtle society changes. So when you get to the 80s and the 90s, most of the blunt talk had been covered with the innocent and guilt entities that were within whites. Right? Now let's hear it one more time.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm not prejudiced. I just as soon, live here as live anywhere else. But I don't want to be the only white family living here. You see what I mean?
It's getting good, ladies and gentlemen, and it's going to get even better in the next commentary. I thank you for your time and attention. My name is Brooklyn St. Michael, and I'll see you in the free world.